like to talk from the top of the backswing, the new impact, okay, that transition, the top of the backswing through impact. What are you seeing there as far as pelvic tilt
Yep.
and rotation?
Okay. So I'll describe what I like to see from a right-handed golfer
Yes.
standpoint. I'll use right-handed terminology here.
Yeah.
So to talk about transition, we got to back up a step because as it relates to the pelvis, the movement of the pelvis actually starts the transition. What you see in transition actually starts way before the end of the backswing. Okay.
Yes. Well said.
So in the if this is my pin here and this is this direction is away from the target. So in the backswing, there will be a certain amount of rotation of the pelvis and there will be a certain amount of translation. So translation
Yes.
is just movement away from it. Not a lot of translation because that's hip sway.
Yes.
There will be more rotation and there will be a change of flex in the knees. And the change of the flex in the knees, so the trail leg will straighten, the left leg will flex and internally rotate. And so that will start to create some tilt,
Yeah.
or what I call inclination to the pelvis. So we'll see the right hip get higher as the pelvis starts to turn and rotate.
Yes.
Now, somewhere nearing, probably right around just past left arm parallel to the ground in the backswing, I will start to see that pelvis circle around and move back towards the target.
Yes.
So it will still be rotating. It will still be turning away from the target in the backswing, but the center of that pelvis will actually starting to move back toward the target. So it's not a hip slide. It's
Yeah.
not a push off of the right foot. It's just gently, I've turned, and I've reached a point of rotation to where pressure reaches my right heel and my foot, and it starts to deflect back towards the target.
Yeah.
We don't sway outside our right foot. We don't buckle our right knee and keep our hips level. We want to feel like we're taking that front right hip pocket and we're pulling it up, back, and around behind us in the backswing.
Yeah.
To a point to where we reach a point of rotation where the pelvis actually starts to transition and move laterally back towards the target. Okay. Now it doesn't change its inclination when that occurs. So the right hip is high at the top of the backswing. When it starts to move back toward the target, that translation back toward the target, that right hip stays high.
Okay.
And it stays high for a moment from up here to just before left arm parallel to the ground in the downswing.
Gotcha.
So when you get back to about left arm parallel to the ground swing, your pelvis is almost back to level.
Okay.
So in the backswing, the right side gets high. When you transition, it stays high, and then it starts to get level when that left arm is back to about parallel. And the reason why the pelvis is leveling out is because we're pushing out of the left foot. We're pushing back out of the left foot. So it's not like the right side's necessarily dropping that much. It's the fact that we lowered the left side of the pelvis in the backswing. And then when we start spiking that force out of the ground, we're seeing the pelvis level. And then when we get into impact, the pelvis is actually in a right tilt or a right bend. The lead side is way higher than the left.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So the key,
Totally.
in my opinion, to the whole thing is what happens before end of backswing and what happens in early transition. I see golfers keep their back leg flexed and turn their hips dead level to the ground in the backswing.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, there generally is too much sway and the pelvis translates too far to the right and they get stuck on their right foot.
Yeah.
When they feel stuck on their right foot, they then have to straighten their right leg and push off, and that causes the pelvis to abruptly go like this. It causes the right side of that pelvis to drop too soon in transition, which then starts a whole domino effect of the
Flipping.
forces that are going into the grip on the handle.
Yeah. Very cool. Would you say, looking at it from in the other plane, the center of the pelvis relative to its starting point at impact, by the time we get to impact from where it started, typically, would you say it's closer to the ball, further from the ball? Same spot.
It's closer to the ball. Definitely
So
closer to the ball. So that we would call in that if we're looking down the line at a golfer,
yes,
so that value would be called thrust. Thrusting in toward the ball. That's a negative word for most golf coaches or players like, oh, I'm humping it, or I'm early extending, or I'm thrusting. So where it's at, where the center of that pelvis is from address to impact. I think that was your comparison,
yes,
right?
yes,
Okay. So the center of that pelvis is definitely closer to the golf ball with every high level player than where it was at address. There is some thrust there because we can't be pushing out of the ground if we're not thrusting. If we're just bending over and our pelvis is moving back away from the ball, we're unweighting ourselves. Well, in the
yeah,
downswing, we're weighting ourselves. We're pushing up the entirety. As a matter of fact, the most force into the ground is in early transition. This is when we're
yeah,
pushing into the ground the hardest. People think that we're pushing into the ground down here by the ball. We've already done all the pushing.
yeah.
There's virtually no pushing down by the ball going into the ground. So in early transition, as we're going down, we're increasing bend of the pelvis and the torso. That's that famous squat move that you
Yes,
see Snead modeling. Okay, that's probably by the time you get to about P3 or excuse me P5 lead arm parallel. That's probably as far back as the pelvis is going to be right there from the ball, and then it's going to be getting incrementally closer as the golfer approaches impact.
okay. And I see where you're going. If you think about it this way, if you push off the ground, eventually vertically,